Hello everyone, welcome to this week's live video from the Purple Penny. Sorry we're a bit late, having technical problems again. Our computer installed an update last week before we closed it down, and I switched it back on about 30 minutes ago and it's taken this long to get started, so I do apologise for that, and I'd like to pass on my personal thanks to Microsoft for rolling out updates every 5 seconds and stopping all my computers from working. I really appreciate that. Right, that's enough whinging about technology. My name's Mark. I own and run the Purple Penny, along with my wife Catherine. The Purple Penny's a small family-run coin and banknote dealer. We're in the suburb of Mawson Lakes, which is about sort of 15 or 20 minutes north of Adelaide, Adelaide being the capital of South Australia. We buy and sell coins, banknotes and collectibles through the shop here, and also our website, which is called thepurplepenny.com. Always list up sort of 30, 40, 50 new items up on the Purple Penny website, time allowing, excuse me. Hay fever, gotta love it. And we're also dealers for the Royal Australian Mint, which means that we sometimes get new coins and banknotes from them when they release new things. A few hellos to people. Hello. Sorry, we just have to say hello to JJ, Peter Holdsworth, Ted Varick, Patrick, Daryl, another Patrick, Mick, Catherine, who's out there catching up on the mail, and Gwen. Thank you everyone for joining in today. We'll jump straight into the news. We'll jump straight into this. You probably know by now that there was a Bluey coin release last week. You probably realise that we never spoke about it at all. We never mentioned it on our Facebook apart from the day before the release, and also that was it. We never talked about it at all. There was a lot of, I guess, increased pressure from certain parties about not talking about this release and not recording interest and publicity and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, we just took the safe option, didn't talk about the release at all. As always, we did get a little bit of stock, and as always, we get far less than what you'd think. On the release day on Thursday morning, there was about sort of, I guess, maybe 70 or 100 people lined up out the front of the shop. I'm not sure when the first person got here, but we certainly saw someone sitting out the front of the shop at 8 o'clock the night before, so that's at least 14 hours before we opened up. As you'd expect, everyone was only interested in the silver one, and as I worked my way down the line before we opened, I figured about where we were going to run out and told everyone past that point that they wouldn't be getting one. Of course, the inevitable questions then are, well, how many did you get and why didn't I get one? And, you know, the answer is we're not allowed to say how many we get. We get some, we don't get enough. We could have sold what we got 20 times over. And, you know, I wish we could give one to everyone, and but we just can't. It's just not how it works. We don't get enough stuff. So if you managed to get a silver one, good luck to you. If you didn't, well, you know, either buy one on the secondary market or don't. You know, you don't have to have everything. And, you know, if you're buying it for kids or grandkids, they probably don't care that much. They're probably too little to understand. And if you get them one of the $20 aluminium bronze cards, I'm sure they'll be just as happy with that as they would with the silver one. There is another release coming up in a couple of weeks, which I'm not sure that I can talk about yet. I've had a look through the communications we've had so far, and I can't work out when we're allowed to talk about it. But in 2 weeks, there'll be another release coming up. So just keep your eyes out for that one. Now, we are going to be closed next week. We'll be closed from when we shut on Saturday until Wednesday the 5th of November. So the shop was shut for a week, and obviously we're not here Mondays and Tuesdays. We're not open Mondays and Tuesdays. We'll be here, but we won't be open. Won't be responding to any emails or Facebook messages or phone messages about the release that's coming up, because because we're having a week off, and when we get back we probably won't have time to work our way through all of the messages and stuff. But if you are interested in any of those releases that are coming up, then feel free to message us, and I'll do my best to work through those when we are back on board on Monday the 3rd of November. No promises as always, but you know, we're always happy to listen to what people are asking for, and we can only do our best. Right, that's enough of Bluey. No, it's not enough. The whole Bluey thing is I don't know, it's all a bit gross, because I know that many of the people are into it just to resell it, and I'm reasonably active on Facebook coin groups, and I know that people are selling them, and you know, it's easy to point the fingers at dealers like us and say that we're selling this stuff, but you know, it's collectors that are doing most of the selling just to get their hands on it and sell some, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but you know, for us to cop grief on the phone and face to face because people that want to resell these things don't get what they want is a bit annoying. Right, what are they actually selling for? So I had a look on eBay this morning, and the silver baubles are selling for between $400 and $580 in the last 48 hours. That seemed to be the price range, but almost all of them are selling in the $450 to $500 range, which is a pretty good profit on your $100 if you bought one. The aluminium bronze ones, and they are aluminium bronze, they're not gold. I'm not sure where that started from. They're aluminium bronze ones. Look like they're selling between $50 and $75 on a release price of $20. So, you know, the chances are that those prices will probably decrease over time slightly, because that's what they always do. So, you know, if you really have to have one of the silver ones, then my advice would be to perhaps wait a couple of weeks and see if the price softens, and just see what happens. So good luck if you're sort of looking for one. Right, let's see if there's any questions here before we get started on non-Bluey stuff. Just say a few more hellos. Who have we got here? We've got Luke, Brett, Tanya, Richie, Taz, hello, Daryl. Daryl says, I was wondering how many they save for the RAM and how maybe they save at the mint to get. So, Daryl, we know what the wholesale allocation is. The wholesale allocation is the number that are given to the authorised dealer network. Yeah, Catherine, I took a screenshot of the phone. Thank you, Catherine, for reminding me of that. We know what the allocation is to the wholesale network, and it is not even remotely close to all of the allocation, and it's not even half. And that's split up amongst people like us, small dealers like us, and mammoth dealers like Downies and Australia Post. And the way that it is weighted between dealers is on the basis of turnover. And you can imagine what we turn over compared to Australia Post. So you can imagine what we get allocated compared to what Australia Post gets. And there seems to be this thought that we get as many as we want. We don't even get asked how many we want. We get told. And as I said, it's not remotely as many as what you'd think. Now, Catherine, thank you, Catherine, for reminding me for that. So this lovely message came through on our phone at 11:45 p.m. on Saturday night. Would you be interested in buying these? So this person has just got their hands on stuff that, you know, we are very keen to see go to collectors, and they're trying to sell it back to us. And, you know, I won't tell you what I wanted to reply on Sunday morning when I found this message on the phone, because I would have got in trouble. Catherine asked me to calm down. So, you know, this is what we have to deal with, is people like this that just, anyway, it makes me cross. It makes me cross. Yeah. Daryl says, how many they save? No, Daryl, we don't know that. You'd have to ask the Mint. Why would the Mint tell us what they split their stuff up by? You know, Daryl, they don't tell us that. They don't share that information with us. So, no, we don't know that. What else is happening in the news this week isn't anything to do with Bluey, because I don't want to talk about Bluey no more. So, let's see. A metal detectorist in the UK found that So it's a gold heart encrusted with gems and enamel. If you're wondering how big it is, it's about that big. It's about 10 centimetres tall. It was found in 2019 by a metal detectorist who was detecting a field in Warwickshire. And his words, not mine, when he found it, he screamed like a little girl. It's believed that this thing dates to the Tudor period. And if you're wondering what the Tudor period is, that's Henry VIII, Queen Elizabeth, that sort of period. And it bears the initials of King Henry VIII, which is, he's probably the most famous medieval king in history from anywhere. And it also bears the initials of Catherine of Aragon, who was his first wife. Henry VIII had a lot of wives, and when he wasn't allowed by the church to divorce them, he did a couple of things. Firstly, is he chopped their heads off, and second is he just created his a new religion that allowed him to divorce. Anyway, so this was dropped somewhere. This very valuable item in the late 1500s, detected up by this gentleman, and it's been valued at £3.5 million. And the British Museum right now is trying to raise money to purchase it because they've been given the first option to purchase this, because it's an item of national significance to the UK, and the metal detectorist gets to share half of that money with the owner of the field. So he's looking at a £1.5 million payday for that amazing thing. It's I cannot fathom how someone could drop this and not find it again. I wonder if one of Henry's attendants dropped it, and when he realised, or she realised what they'd done, they scarpered and never got caught. Quite a remarkable thing to be found in a field. Quite remarkable. Well done to that metal detectorist. Next item in the news is, and this goes on from my story last week talking about gold and silver. This week sees a couple of festivals in India, Jewellery and Dhanteras, and those festivals are both occurring when gold is effectively at an all-time high. There are also festivals that in India they're associated with buying gold, which are thought at this time of the year to bring the buyers of gold good luck and wealth. And in previous times, the buyers were happy to buy small items of gold jewellery. The trouble with buying gold jewellery is there is a higher premium on that, the premium being the difference between the price of the jewellery and the gold value. So with gold being so high, purchasers in India are now looking for lower premium items, and they are tending towards buying bullion coins because they have a lower premium on them. And Indian jewelers are actually making smaller medallions. They were calling them coins, but they're not coins. They're making smaller medallions in presentation cards for people to buy that are more affordable, and they're as small as 0.25 of a gram, those medallions. So it's interesting that the higher gold price is affecting religious festivals. Yeah, so I just thought that was a really interesting story. Next item in the news. No, that's it for the news for today. Right. Okay. I thought I had one more story. It isn't the last Monday of the month, but it is the last video of the month because we're having a week off next week, so there won't be a video. Usually the last video of the month we do a question and answer day, and I've had a couple of questions already. One was about counterfeit coins, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I've done this topic a few times before. The question was, what do you do to pick fake coins? Do fake coins appear in collections? And do people know that they're fakes? And yes, fake coins do appear in collections, and I like to think that the people that have fake coins in their collections buy them knowingly because they can't afford the real ones. But we've certainly had instances in here where people have come in with collections and there's a fake coin in the collection, and they have bought a fake unwittingly from, usually it's an online marketplace of some sort. A friend of ours happened to buy a fake coin from a well-known dealer, and he brought that in here, and we could use some of our tools on that just to verify that was fake. The dealer did refund his purchase, of course, so it does happen. Fake coins, some of them are quite good, and they do slip through to the keeper sometimes. Dealers don't pick them. But a lot of the time, the fake coins are fillers, and by fillers I mean they're low-value, mass-produced items that are really just there to fill a space in a collection because the person can't afford the real thing. Now, do we ever get caught? Hardly ever these days. I will confess, though, that about a month ago we bought in a group of about 50 English crowns, all low-grade English crowns. And there was one fake one in there which I didn't detect until a bit later. So that's my bad. If it's just one English crown, I'd certainly pick a fake. I know when I was sorting them out a week later, I was flipping through them and saw that it was a fake straight away. Now, what are some basic tools that you need to just pick a fake? Some internet references to begin with, and excuse me a second. Some internet references are a good place to start. So if you're perhaps thinking about buying silver 1 ounces, then look at some pictures of some real silver 1 ounces online, and then store those images somewhere so that you can compare anything you think about buying with those real ones. So, you know, your number one tool is really your eyeballs, is by looking at real and fake coins and learning to pick the difference. You're going to need a catalogue, because a catalogue will tell you what size the real coins should be, how much they should weigh, and things like that. Some scales, accurate to 1/100 of a gram. It's no point using your kitchen scales. Most fakes are over or underweight. So the most common fakes we see here are base metal silver crowns. Base metal silver crown should weigh somewhere from 26.7 to 27.7 grams. They're all, doesn't matter whether it's English or Australian or Chinese, they all weigh in that range. Same with American Morgan dollars. The fakes are almost always less than that. You know, they're always under 26 grams, under 25 grams, often 21 grams or 20 grams. So, you know, the weight is usually the first thing that will give it away if you can't pick it by eye. The next thing is that often the base metal fakes are magnetic. Silver coins and gold coins are not magnetic, so just having a magnet in your pocket can help you. And if your budget can afford it, then an XRF is a good tool. Obviously, most people can't afford an XRF, and I'll be honest with you, we can't afford an XRF, but we've got one anyway. If you are here in Adelaide and you're not sure about the authenticity of a coin, you're always welcome to bring it in here, and we'll shoot it with the XRF for you and give you an idea of what it comprises of. So there's some tips about picking fakes, but if you're not certain about picking fakes, then make sure you're buying your coins from reputable sources that have a good return policy. I know that I'll just read this story here. Ted has got a post here. There was a 2122 overdate 3pence that sold at a major online auction house last night that looked pretty sus. It sold for 1200 plus buyers premium. If it is a major auction house and it turns out to be fake, they'll almost certainly return it. They'll accept a return on it. You know, the big auction houses like Nobles and Roxbury's and Downies and things like that, they have a good return policy and they'll return fakes. So I really wouldn't worry too much about that. It's really the little local auction houses that you might have a problem with. So I know here in Adelaide there's a couple that do have good return policies, and there's others that do not, and they won't return fakes, which I suspect is probably illegal. But I'm no expert on consumer law about that. So if you're not sure, just make sure that you understand what the return policy is of the place where you're buying the coin from, or the bullion, or whatever it is, and perhaps verify it by phone or email or whatever, and just get that in writing before you make your purchase. There was another question that we had this morning from Taz, and she just wanted to know what a good investment in coins was, and I'll give you the same answer we give everyone, and that is, if we knew that, we wouldn't have a shop. We'd just buy the things that were going to go up in value and sell those. So, you know, there is no There's no easy answer to that. We're not investment advisors, we're just a hobby shop, and there's no doubt some things do go up in value and some of them go down. You don't need my advice to tell you that if you manage to get Blueys at release price, you're going to make money on those if you're going to flip those over, but that's not investment advice, that's just common sense. I have done a video on this a little while back, and while there's no certainties about what's going to go up in value, if you buy things that are of the highest quality and scarcity and in demand, then you are maximizing your chances that the price may go up. But no one can predict what demand is, and really demand is what drives the prices of everything in numismatics. If there is no demand for something, then there is no price for it. If there's a huge amount of demand, then the price will go up. And if you don't believe me, have a look at how prices of mint product vary over time. 2012 red poppies and rolls and things like that, the prices of those go up and down all the time, purely based on demand, because they're not rare. If you want to go and buy a 2012 red poppy, there'll be a lot of them up on eBay. If you want to buy a 2012 red poppy roll, there's always some up on eBay. If you want to buy one, they're there. And the price of those are driven by demand only. So if you are intent on buying 2012 red poppies, then my advice to you is to buy ones that are in the best condition possible on RSL cards, and keeping them absolutely pristine, so that if you believe they're going to go up in value over time, then you've got the best quality ones to move on. Similar with rolls, make sure that you buy an obviously genuine roll that's nice and tight with good paper, so that if in time you decide to move that on, then you have your best chance of selling that for a premium price. But don't buy them because you think they're rare, because they're not. I collect some very rare things, and what I collect, most of them are unique, but very few of them are worth what a 2012 red poppy is, because what I collect no one wants. I'm really the only person that wants it, so there's no value to it. So I hope that answers the question. The answer is I don't know what a good thing to invest in is in coins, and your guess is as good as mine. Now, someone did ask me a question about broken dies, about whether we had any broken dies, and the answer to that is we do have some somewhere, but I couldn't, well, I'm not saying I couldn't find them, I didn't even look, because I do remember that it's quite a small die and the crack is quite small, and I just thought it would be easier just to rip some images off the internet, off of Ken Potter's website. And Ken Potter is a American error coin expert, writes lots of articles for magazines. He writes the American Guide to Pocket Change, which is like a noodling guide for America. He's a great guy. I've had a few communications with him. Elderly, been around for a long time, knows, one of these people who knows forgotten more than what most people know. And he's got some great images up on the internet of broken medallion dies. So excuse me for 1 second. Sorry, hay fever. So I just lifted his images off of his website because I know he's always happy to share those images. So this person asked about broken dies and what effect that has on the coins that they're made. So I've just lifted some pictures here. We've got a couple of broken medallion dies there up the top, and you can see that the edge of the dies have actually broken off and come off. Those broken dies have affected the shank of the die, which is the edge, and obviously when they strike a coin, there's not going to be any design there, and you're going to get a big bulge of metal filling that empty area. And of course we all know that that's a rim cud. So those two dies there are how rim cuds occur. The die fractures and a bit falls out or displaces, and you end up with an unstruck area. So at the bottom right there is a big rim cud from a New Zealand dollar coin, and that's exactly what you would expect to see from any medallion that was struck with those two dies up the top there. Sometimes that broken bit of die is actually retained by the collar so it doesn't fall out, but it displaces downwards a little bit. And you'll end up with what's called a retained cud on the struck coin. And the penny at the bottom left there has a retained cud on it. So you can see that that cud, retained cud, is proud of the surface of the coin. So it's in relief of the surface of the coin. And that's because the broken bit of die has shifted downwards. So there's still a little bit of detail there. It is a little bit weak. But, you know, that's what a broken die looks like. And those cuds there and the retained cud are what's the result of a coin that is struck by one of those broken dies. Now the next thing that I found this morning when I was poking around was this die here, another one of Ken's dies, and you can see there that it has a crack running from the middle of, you know, sort of the middle of the design on the face of the die, and the crack is running all the way down the side of the die there right to the base of it. So the metal has actually fractured, you know, and this probably happens over time when the die itself strikes more and more medallions or coins. It's a constant balance with the metal of the die between hardness, because they want the die to be hard so that they can strike as many coins or medallions as possible. But then if you make it too hard, it becomes brittle and then get this cracking. So it's a constant battle with coin and medallion makers to strike a balance between hardness and brittleness, and that's called toughness. So they want the dies to be as tough as possible, which is hard but without being easily fractured. Now, what's a coin going to look like that's struck by this sort of die? Well, I mean, you know, the die itself is cracked, and it's probably, you don't need to be a rocket surgeon to realise that a coin that's struck with a cracked die has a die crack on it. So there's a few die cracks there. There's some pennies and half pennies and things like that. Basically, when the coin is struck, the metal smooges down into the cracked parts of the die, so you get a raised crack-like appearance on the coin or the medallion or whatever it is. That those raised cracks are filling the cracks that are on the die. It's actually itself. So a die crack on a coin doesn't mean the coin itself is cracked. It means that the metal on the coin has forced its way into the cracks on the die, and that is quite distinctive from a coin which has a cracked planchet. So they are different things. Now the last one here is sometimes you'll see a reference to coins being struck with a shattered die, and there's an example there of a shattered die there, again thanks to Ken Potter. A shattered die is exactly what it sounds like. It's a die that has shattered and fallen to pieces and is retained by the collar die and is still used to strike coins. And these sort of coins struck with shattered dies have die cracks all over their surface, traversing from left to right, you know, from across the diameter of the coin and things like that. So that's a shattered die there. Thanks to the person that asked that question. It was a good question. I wish I could have had the time to find our cracked die, because I know that we've got one somewhere. Now, Taz has asked a question here. I've just wondered if pre-decimals typically perform better than decimals over the decades, but I guess it's how long is a piece of string. I'll give you the same advice that I've already given, is that premium stuff seems to perform well, but mid-grade stuff has definitely gone backwards. And that's, I suspect, because the demand has dropped away. There's no doubt it is more difficult to collect pre-decimal coins than it is to collect modern mint product, and that's because you need to be able to grade or find a dealer that will grade for you if you're going to collect pre-decimal coins, because the condition is so there's a strong correlation between condition and value. And the example that I like to give is that 1925 pennies, you know, I mean, we've been in the shop for coming up to 7 years, and there's no doubt that VF 1925 pennies that were selling for $200 7 years ago don't sell for $200 now. And I think that's just because there's less and less people collecting pre-decimal coins. But it also means that the people that are still collecting pre-decimal coins, they just want the good stuff. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the really good stuff is going to go backwards in value. It could well mean that it's going to go up, because there's perhaps people who are a bit more cashed up and a bit more educated and willing to pursue and pay for more for what they perceive to be premium pre-decimal coins. And you only need to look at some of the prices that top pop pre-decimal coins, even supposed common date pre-decimal coins, they still sell for $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000. So there's still people out there that have got money that are chasing, the really tip of the iceberg coins. So I hope that answers your question, Taz. Right, that's it for this week. Let's just see if there's any more questions here I've missed. No, I don't think. I think that's it. That's it for this week. I do apologise for being a bit late. Hopefully I can work out what's going on with this computer. As again, I'd just like to pass on my thanks to Microsoft for screwing with my computer. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time, which will be Monday the 3rd. It'll be Monday the 2nd. That'll be the day that we're got our next video. Any news that we post up will be up on Facebook. So if you are watching this later on YouTube and you don't follow us on Facebook, head over to Facebook and follow the Purple Penny. And that's it. Happy collecting. I hope everyone got their blueies that they were after. If you didn't and you don't want to pay the money, there's plenty of other stuff to collect. Alright, happy collecting. Bye for now. Stay safe. See you, everyone.